Here's a look forward to Friday evening's programmes on BBC One. There's an extended 6 o'clock news with a full roundup of the election results, followed at 7 by regional news programmes. Harry and the Hendersons is at 7:35, then at 8 o'clock Bruce Forsyth begins a brand new show featuring some of the top names in entertainment, starting tonight with Cliff Richard, Howard Keel and Lisa Stansfield in Bruce's Guest Night. The 9 o'clock news has been extended for election coverage. Then at 9:50, the night is completed with 2 feature films, starting with a dramatic thriller based on the real-life efforts of the Los Angeles Narcotics Squad to track down a major drug baron. James Farentino stars in A Cop for the Killing. Then at 11:20, James Belushi, Rob Lowe and Demi Moore star in the bittersweet sex comedy About Last Night. Incidentally, viewers in Northern Ireland have their own programmes after 9:50. That's the look of Friday evening. Well, back to Friday morning now, as the time fast approaches 6 o'clock, and we join Nicholas Witchell and Laurie Mayer for the breakfast news.
John Major is on his way back to Downing Street. The Conservatives have won the general election and they're heading for an overall majority. Hello, good morning to you from Laurie and me. The time is 6 o'clock on Friday the 10th of April, the day the Conservatives are beginning a 4th successive term as the government of Britain. The result has defied the opinion polls. John Major has said that he always knew the Tories would win. For Neil Kinnock, a night of what he called dismay and sorrow. We told the truth, he said. Britain deserved better. Paddy Ashdown will not be holding the balance of power. The Lib Dem vote has fallen. And cheers for the winner who lost his seat, Chris Patten, who ran the Conservatives' campaign.
In the next 3.5 hours, we'll be looking at the results in detail, getting all the reaction, analysing what the results mean for the country and for the political parties. What went wrong for Labour? Who will bear the blame for their 4th successive defeat? North of the border, the Conservatives have made gains. What will the result mean for Scotland? And the opinion polls. Why were they so wide of the mark?
It was a night which began with talk of a hung parliament. It's ended with the Conservatives celebrating their 4th successive general election victory. They've defied all the predictions and are heading for an overall majority of around 17 seats. But they've paid a price. A number of Conservative ministers, the party chairman Chris Patten, the most prominent of them, have lost their seats. Labour did well in a number of marginals, but across the country as a whole, the national swing of 2% to Labour never came close to what the party needed for victory. Neil Kinnock's dreams have been dashed, so have Paddy Ashdown's. Overall, it's been a bad night for the Liberal Democrats. In Scotland, it's been a disappointing night for the Scottish nationalists and a better one there for the Conservatives.
Of the 651 seats, 618 have been declared so far. Here are the details. The Conservatives have 321. That's a net loss so far of 36 seats. Labour has 269, a gain of 40. The Liberal Democrats have 16, a net loss of 1. The Scottish and Welsh nationalists together have 7. Other parties, predominantly in Northern Ireland, have 3. Based on these results, this is the forecast of how the new House of Commons will look when counting has been completed this evening. The Conservatives are expected to have 334 seats, Labour 272, the Liberal Democrats 21, the Nationalists 7 and others 5. So an overall majority of 17 is forecast for the Conservatives. And this is the share of the vote. The Conservatives polled 42%, only 1 point down on 1987. Labour 36%, that's 4% up, and the Liberal Democrats 18%, that's 5% less than the alliance got 5 years ago. Despite their win, the Tories have lost a number of prominent MPs, most notably the man who organised their campaign, the party chairman Chris Patten. He lost his Bath seat to the Liberal Democrats. Other ministers who are out are the Overseas Development Minister, Linda Chalker, in Wallasey. 2 Treasury ministers are out, Francis Maude in Warwickshire North and John Maples in Lewisham West. The Energy Minister, Colin Moynihan, lost his Lewisham East seat, and the Environment Minister, David Trippier, lost Rossendale. This morning, the Conservatives are celebrating. Labour are beginning the inquest into what went wrong. John Major has said he was confident we would win from the start. Margaret Thatcher, back from the United States, said the victory conserved everything we've done in the past 13 years. Neil Kinnock has said he felt dismay and sorrow for the people of Britain. He said Labour would fight on and he would stay as party leader. Justin Webb now tells the story of the night, how early predictions of a hung Parliament turned into a Conservative victory. We'll bring you that report in just a moment.
In fact, let's go now straight to Downing Street, where we can join Martin Lewis down there. Martin, good morning. What's happening down in Downing Street just at the moment?
Good morning, Nick. Well, the Prime Minister, we're told, is due here in round about 1 minute's time, arriving back here as a Prime Minister with his own mandate from the people for the first time. And I think that is going to be a very special moment for him as he comes up the street and sees the reception committee waiting for him, the garden girls, the typists and telephonists, reputed to be amongst the best in Whitehall. His parliamentary private secretary, Graham Bright, who won his seat with a majority of around 800. He's waiting here too. And of course his entire team from the press office, who are all standing out ready to give him a great welcome. I have to tell you, there are copious quantities of champagne that have already been drunk inside to celebrate the victory. And I have no doubt there will be much more drunk in the course of the day.
Martin, we're looking at a rather foggy, misty view. I can't quite identify it. Is that
yes, I think what you're seeing. What you're seeing now is what we're looking out for is the Prime Ministerial motorcade, which should be wending its way down through the picture there towards. I think that might just be it turning the corner now.
It's
going to be very difficult to tell because, as you say, Nick, it is very misty and very foggy. But I suspect that we're only seconds away from the Prime Minister's car. I think this is it now. Coming into Downing Street, it is indeed the Prime Ministerial motorcade coming up Downing Street with quite a considerable reception from the Downing Street team. Prime Minister looking a little tired, but pleased and happy. Special waves for the photographers. A big hug for the Prime Minister's wife from Graham Bright, his parliamentary private secretary. Prime Minister receiving the congratulations of the team that have helped him to his victory.
Yes, John Major is back in Downing Street, greeting his parliamentary private secretary, Graham Bright.
And we expect the Prime Minister to come over here in just a moment to say a few words.
Let's just see if he has...
Microphones are ready. We understand that he is going to say something. And you can hear the shouts probably from the press corps saying, Prime Minister, please come over here and spare a few words. Quite a few of them have been waiting here for some considerable time.
Martin, do you have any sense there whether everybody in Downing Street was, obviously the civil servants have to remain strictly neutral, but were the Conservatives amongst them as confident as they've been saying in public that Mr. Major would be returning there this morning?
Yes, indeed, Nick. In fact, they have not believed the polls all along. They share the Prime Minister's view that the polls have not adequately reflected what has been happening on the ground, what the Conservatives have discovered to be happening on the ground. And because of that, there always was a feeling that they would do a lot better than the polls indicated. But of course, the polls do have an effect. And there's no doubt that when they saw, first of all, the seats starting to flow their way, there was a great feeling of relief, a great feeling of satisfaction.
It's an unusual shot to see Mr. and Mrs. Major with their 2 children there, isn't it? Norma Major giving a sign of 4
Absolutely.
victories.
We don't often see the 2 major children. They tend to stay in the background. The Prime Minister coming across for a few words.
Going to have a word with us. Prime Minister, you must be feeling tired, but very, very good indeed.
I'm very pleased at the result. It's a result, I think, that has surprised 1 or 2 people, but not the Conservative Party. I'm very pleased with it, and it's nice to be back, and I look forward to what we can do there in the next 5 years. We've set out some very clear, very comprehensive plans for our future to lift us out of recession and to carry out the reforms that we think are right for this country and to build the sort of society that I want to see. I now have a clear majority. It's there for a full Parliament, and we can begin that work immediately.
Prime
And I
Minister,
look
is there
forward
any
to it.
particular message, Prime Minister, for those people who did not vote for you?
I think all the people who did not vote for me expressed their views at the ballot box for what they wanted. I shan't forget those views. I've set out the things I care about and the things I wish to achieve. But I'm Prime Minister of all this country, for everyone, whether they voted for me or not, and that is something I shall never forget.
Mrs.
Thank you
Major,
all very
can we
much.
ask a word from you? You must be feeling pretty proud at the moment. Wonderful, wonderful. And Prime Minister, it's not a time to talk policy, I know, but is this going to be a time now of rather violent change, of things you want to do, or is it a calmer time now of consolidation?
It's a time that evolves. We're going to build on what's there. There will be change, of course there will. There always is. One has to change things to respond to changing events. So yes, you can expect change, but expect it to evolve, expect it to build up gradually.
And Prime Minister,
expect it to be right.
Prime Minister, if you had one major priority that was going to top your agenda for the next year, what would it be?
Well, the first thing we have to do is to lift this country clear out of recession and back into recovery. That clearly is the thing we need to do first, and that we will achieve. Thank you all very much
Did you really
indeed.
think this was going to happen?
John Major back in Downing Street saying that it's nice to be back. Well, let us now, as he goes in through the door of number 10, let us now recap on the story of the night. A fourth term for the Tories, unprecedented this century. A report now from Justin Webb.
Triumph for John Major. Triumph that was all the more sweet because it had looked to be out of his grasp. At 5 o'clock this morning, the Prime Minister took the plaudits of his party officials at Conservative Central Office and basked in the certainty of victory.
We've won tonight a magnificent victory. A victory that many people thought was beyond our grasp, but one which the Conservative Party always believed was there for the taking. And as a result of that victory, we have 5 years to put into place those items of policy we set out in our manifesto, those dreams for our future, that nature of society that we have set out that we wish to create.
Much earlier in the night, Labour at their headquarters had been refusing to be downcast and talking confidently about the prospect of a hung parliament.
In a hung parliament situation, the Tories will have suffered a huge defeat and I think will have lost the right to stay in office.
Then came a moment of drama and a blow to Tory morale.
Donald Michael Ellison Foster,
Liberal Democrat.
25,000.
The Liberal Democrat's Don Foster had defeated the Conservative Party chairman Chris Patten. At the very moment that Conservatives were beginning to hope that Chris Patten's national campaign had succeeded, his local hopes were dashed. Straining against the noise of his jubilant opponents, he thanked his local team.
I'm sorry that we didn't win, but I say to them that we will be back and that the Conservative flag will fly over Bath once again.
It was a high spot for the Conservatives' challengers, but elsewhere Mr. Patten's colleagues were hanging on. No wonder, midway through the night, before his own count, the Liberal Democrat leader Paddy Ashdown had looked pensive. It was turning out to be a mixed night for him, some successes, including Bath and Cheltenham, but no sign of a real breakthrough for the third party. When Mr. Ashdown took his seat, increasing his majority, he did not talk about holding the balance of power.
I believe at the end of tonight we will see what is already beginning to show, which is an increase in the number of Liberal Democrat members of Parliament in the next Parliament, and I give only this undertaking, which I'm sure I can give for all of them, which is they will be a force for stability and a force for change in the next Parliament, whatever role we play.